The Smiths were excited to move into their new home, a charming old house in the suburbs. They had found the perfect place to raise their family and start a new chapter in their lives. But their excitement quickly turned to terror when they discovered that their home had a dark and twisted past. The previous owner of the house, an elderly woman, had been brutally murdered in her own home. The police had never found the killer, and the case remained unsolved. The Smiths had no idea about the tragic history of their new home when they bought it, but they soon realized that they were not alone in the house. At first, they thought it was just their imagination. They would hear strange noises coming from the walls, and the floorboards would creak as if someone was walking on them. But then, they started to see things. They would see shadows moving in the corner of their eyes, and they would feel a cold breeze in rooms that should have been warm. They began to feel like they were being watched. The ghost of the previous owner, Mrs. Johnson, was still lingering in the house. She was angry and vengeful. She had been murdered in her own home and she wanted justice. She was determined to make the Smiths' lives a living nightmare until her killer was brought to justice. The Smiths tried to ignore the ghost, but it was impossible. They were terrified and couldn't sleep at night. They decided to seek help. They called a paranormal investigator to come and help them with the ghost. The investigator confirmed that the house was indeed haunted by the ghost of Mrs. Johnson. The investigator suggested to the Smiths to try to communicate with the ghost and find out what she wanted. The Smiths were hesitant, but they knew they had to do something. They set up a Ouija board in the living room and tried to contact the ghost. "Mrs. Johnson, we know you're here, we want to help you," Mr. Smith said, while holding the planchette. To their surprise, the planchette moved on its own and spelled out a message: "Find my killer, bring him to justice." The Smiths were shocked. They had with the killer behind bars. The Smiths thought their nightmare was over. But the ghost of Mrs. Johnson was still not at peace. She appeared to the Smiths one last time, thanking them for bringing her killer to justice and finally giving her the closure she needed. She disappeared, and the Smiths never saw her again. The Smiths were relieved that the ghost had finally found peace, but the experience had left them traumatized. They had to move out of the house. They couldn't bear to live there anymore. The house remained unoccupied, and it was said that strange noises and whispers could still be heard coming from the house at night. A reminder of the tragic event that had occurred there and the ghost that still lingered in the house.
Leave a like and subscribe for more scary stories.